I just saw this video. There's like, I don't know, at least four people who have huge followings and they have no idea who God is. And it just bothers me how these people who could reach so many people if they actually knew Jesus. And, I just kind of made a, I don't know, I just kind of made a comment, you know, I don't know if it's, I don't, part of me just gets like grr, and I'm like, but part of me is like, I don't know, could this start a comment discussion and I could give my view or something? But anyways, I'm just like, why is it that all these new preachers don't know the gospel? And then I go, on doing my thing, and then it just starts coming to my mind, like, why they don't know the gospel. Back in the day, there was no such thing as losing salvation. I mean, way back in the, I don't know, but back in the day, there's no such thing as like this losing salvation, all this stuff. And now it's like every single preacher on YouTube, if they have more than like 10,000 viewers, they don't know the gospel. You can be pretty certain they don't know the gospel. And it's always people who generally have been saved from, they probably have some, story. And that's the thing. I think that is what it is. Back in the day, 50s, I don't know what it was like, 100, anyways, back in the day, 50s or whatever, everyone, it was basically agreed upon everyone was a Christian. I was talking to my mom the other day. I have PureFlix, and like fairly recently, within the last year or so, they put up all these classic movies and movies and stuff, and I haven't even tried to even watch them. I'd say I haven't even given thought to watching them, but I have given thought. I'm like, I don't know if they actually like actively try to make like Christian movie. I prefer like Christian movies if they're just, generally good, not too bad of movies, okay, or whatever, or something. I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I saw those on the list, and I was like, I haven't actually even, looked at any of those movies yet, because I wasn't sure if they're Christian or something. And then I just kind of was like, but I did hear the other day, back then they had like a lot more regulations. I think I was like, I forget, I don't know if it was like agreed upon regulations or like how much, but like I'm pretty sure they had like regulations, so there's not going to be anything like too bad in these things. I mean, even if you watch Angel Studios, they have extremely terrible things on that channel. But anyways, I'm like, maybe it doesn't really even have that bad of things, back then. And my mom was like, yeah, well, it was generally agreed upon that everyone in the shows was Christian, and I forget everything else, but that's how it was. So I would be curious to watch them and see how they are, but that's how it was. Back in the day, one, pretty much everyone was Christian, and two, I don't know two, but you didn't have these terrible stories. You didn't have all these drugs, and not necessarily, they kind of still had other things, but and then all the movies and stuff we have now and stuff, but drugs, things, probably more. I haven't put too much thought into this, but anyways, and back then they were all concerned, and they had no sex. That's also the other thing. And then back then it was like, if you want to have sex, you actually have to marry someone. And then you get to today, and you have all these people, they're like, yeah, I was into drugs, into sex, and all of this stuff, and then God saved me. And now they even believed that Jesus was the only thing that saved them, but then they have this, complete turnaround where they're like, I'm not doing drugs and sex and alcohol and music and whatever, all of this other stuff anymore. And now that all of a sudden they think there's more to salvation than Jesus. Back then, no one even wasn't even no one was teaching this, "Oh, you can lose salvation." It was all like, "You're saved." And now today, all of a sudden, you've got all these preachers who've been saved from drugs, alcohol, sex, and addictions, and now they all of a sudden they think there's more to salvation than Jesus. And we have all these television shows and movies and stuff that's contributing to why you see Christians not acting Christian. So now you have all these, teachers who think that, oh, Jesus can't save you, and all these Christians who are still watching the TV shows and movies and not acting Christ-like seems to mean that there is no such thing as a gospel.